Welcome home. We are WNST. Towson, Baltimore. Baltimore Positive. We are positively into a weekend where hope abounds for the Baltimore Orioles and certainly hope better abound for the Baltimore Ravens. We're going to be doing the Crab Cake Tour. The Maryland Crab Cake Tour will return next Friday at Faidley's. We're at Faidley's this week. At Costas next Friday on the 27th. We will be in Dundalk. Got some guests booked for that. John Sarbane's going to join us at Faidley's. You'll be hearing that into next week as well. Hope you enjoyed our conversation with Dave Sheinin, as well as my dear friend Chad Wiesling, who's running back. Josh Jacobs did the dirty work last week in the backfield that we hope that Derrick Henry does. Meanwhile, on the baseball diamond, and Luke, you and I almost haven't wanted to talk baseball this week because it's been so morose, so defeatist, so how in the world are they going to win 2 weeks from now? And lo and behold, there's some late afternoon excitement, after some very bad things happened in the bullpen, but the Orioles had an exciting win for the fans. I don't know. We always think that one walk-off win, it's going to change everything. It's going to go back to being May. I don't think it's going to be, but for one afternoon, Tony Tater's got the job done.
Yeah, I mean, it was roughly a month ago when he hit the big grand slam against Houston, and what was that? The bottom of the eighth, so it wasn't a walk-off, but it might as well have been in terms of excitement. And I mean, it didn't really produce the spark or the resurgence that the Orioles were hoping to have. But I mean, you just kind of said it. I mean, I think the term I used in my piece at BaltimorePositive.com was it's kind of felt like a doom spiral the last 2 weeks, where I mean, they lost the last game of the White Sox series. They lose the Rays series. They lose the Boston series. They lose to Detroit last weekend. They lose 2 out of 3 and are in danger of being swept on Thursday afternoon. They get a pretty good performance across the board until Sir Anthony Dominguez, who had walked a total of 4 batters since becoming an Oriole in late July, walks the first 2 batters of the top of the 9th inning. A weird fly ball that, I mean, Brandon Hyde talked about it. The wind kind of took it in a weird direction, and Cedric Mullins and Austin Slater collide. The tying run scores, but Gregory Soto comes in, gets a big time double play ball to keep the game tied, and then Anthony Santander. I mean, say what you want about the overall offensive struggles of this club. I mean, they entered Thursday last in the American League in runs scored for the month of September. Say what you want about Gunnar Henderson, who absolutely is the MVP of this team. I will not waver from that whatsoever. The numbers don't lie. But if you want to talk in terms of who's been the most clutch, who's come through the most in these types of situations, it's been Anthony Santander. And he came up with a huge blast on Thursday afternoon. And as I wrote, and as Zach Eflin said in the postgame, it was a breath of fresh air for this ball club that really felt, I mean, really spiraling here over the last couple of weeks. They've struggled the whole second half. We get that, but it's really been bad the last 2 weeks. So is it a breath of fresh air just for a day where you exhale and then, you remember the Tigers are coming to town and how red hot they are? Or could this be the spark? Was that the day that gets this team going? Keep in mind, some other good news on Thursday as well. Jordan Westberg began his rehab assignment. Ramon Arias began his rehab assignment. Danny Coulombe could be activated this weekend. We could be seeing him pitching in Baltimore this weekend. Ryan Mountcastle could be joining the Tides this weekend. So other than the Grayson Rodriguez murkiness in terms of whether he's going to be available, if he's going to be available, what capacity, we don't know. But in terms of everyone else that we knew had a chance to come back, it feels like that's imminent. So it's go time. See what happens. It's a long shot for the division. We know that, even with 3 in the Bronx. I mean, it's going to be a tall order to do that, but they maintained a 3-game lead as far as the top wild card with their win on Thursday. And we'll see how these final 9 games go. But boy, that just felt like a game they absolutely had to win, even before what happened in the top half of the 9th inning. But Anthony Santander came through in a major way for the Orioles.
Feels to me like just the fact that we're doing the math as to what they're going to have to do to clear it when they're actually going to clinch, the actual playoffs, given the fact that the Yankees appear to be better than them now. Winning games there feels tough. And then this Detroit train, I mean, if they win 5 of 6, they've done something against good team. That would change things or change perception. But I can't. I once I get this close to it, I'm going to be very prickly about this and just say, yeah, they lost 10-0 the other night. They won in a walk. None of that matters. What are they going to do against the Royals? And I think one thing we could discuss all next week is what are they capable of doing? And I think what are they capable of doing becomes what we need to talk about from a hope perspective, from a ceiling perspective. And what they're capable of doing is winning any night, right? They really are. If they get the 3 pitchers they need to the post, um, they're capable. I mean, even Dean Kramer, like I'm not down on the pitching the way I thought I would be in July or down on the bullpen. I'm down on the hitting as you predicted I would be if they got eliminated. That if their hitters don't hit, they're going to get eliminated. You said that before Eflin was here. You said that before Bradish was hurt. You know what I mean? Like, so now that we get up on it, yeah, I want to see this weekend and I want to see walk-offs and I want to see pat on the backs just for their morale. Because I do think you were saying it was a death spiral. I think you used the term. That's pretty good. I think they went home feeling good about themselves on Thursday, and it's been a while since that happened. And to your point, they won a lot of games. You went down in that clubhouse. You know what their victory song is in the clubhouse. You heard it enough. You're down there. You see that look. And that's who the team was for a year and a half, 2 years. They did a lot of winning. And then all of a sudden, the spigot stopped. So I think that feeling of winning that Hyde had in the post game, that the fans had a little bit, that's a good endorphin. That's a good feeling. But at the end of the day, whatever Sir Anthony Dominguez did on Thursday walking guys, as long as he doesn't do that 2 weeks from now with a 1-run lead in the ninth inning. And I don't know that the past equals to, no situation's equal, but I do know they have capable ball players. They have capable players to win a 3-game series against the Royals 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, and even with what happened on Thursday with the bullpen, I mean, look, I mean, if Sir Anthony Dominguez starts walking people now, in addition to what we've seen, which is a propensity to give up a home run and give up a solo home run. I mean, he had been perfect, in his first 9 save chances. But there was some good news from the bullpen in that Yennier Cano came in and pitched and looked good. Struck out a couple. Velo was good. Remember he had acknowledged a couple days ago that he was dealing with some forearm tightness. That's why we had talked about it at the time. He only threw 2 pitches in that last appearance at Fenway, and he was pulled then. And we were kind of wondering, how that was, why that was the case. Turns out he was dealing with a little bit of a forearm tightness. Says he's good. Like I said, velocity was good. I think a big key will be how does he feel Friday? How does he feel Saturday? Because they need him. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I agree in principle as it pertains to Corbin Burnes, Zach Eflin, and then Suarez or Kramer or whoever, right? I mean, the
it's
rotation
not going to be Rodriguez. You're convinced of that?
Yeah, I mean, if he pitches, it feels like it's going to be some kind of hybrid bullpen role. And I don't know if I don't know if that's going to be the wild card round. I don't know if that would be the division series. I don't know if that'd be the ALCS. I mean, he's not throwing the live hitters yet. I mean, he's not throwing live batting practice yet, let alone putting together a sim game. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying he won't pitch, but where he is right now, with a little over a week to go in the regular season, does not equate to starting game 3 of a wild card series. I mean, that's just not going to happen. So it is very much a case of how does the rest of the rotation kind of play out. If you look at the calendar, if everyone stays on turn, Zach Eflin would go game 1 and Corbin Burnes would go game 2. I'll take that with the way they're pitching. I mean, Zach Eflin, really good again on Thursday. I mean, he's been everything the Orioles could have asked for in terms of coming in and helping to stabilize that rotation. But like I said, the bullpen, do I like it more with Jacob Webb back and with Danny Coulomb presumably being activated this weekend? Yeah, absolutely. But does that mean it's optimal? Does it mean I feel as confident about it as I did, say, the 2014 Orioles with Zach Britton and Darren O'Day and Andrew Miller and Brad Brock and Kevin Gausman? No. So that's still a question. But to your point, and look, anyone that's going to be in the postseason at this point in time, this applies, right? I mean, you can win games. It's baseball. The high day-to-day variance of baseball is why so many have kind of looked at expanding the playoff field, and then we wonder why the number one seed doesn't get to the World Series, or we wonder why the number two seed doesn't get to the World Series. It's because when you add more teams to it, it becomes more random, because baseball is just a very random game when you look at a very small sample of games, right? Especially a 3-game series, this
Well,
wild
look at
card
last
round.
year, all the effort they did last year, all the traveling, all the money, all the everything, and then it piss a drop in October. If somehow somebody hits a 3-run home run in the first inning next week, they're already in better shape than they were winning 101 games last year. Just having a
Yeah.
lead in game one is better than anything they did last year, even though they did a lot of walking off and had a lot of fun and everybody, like all of that, that it's so judgmental on October, right? Like the
Yeah.
success of this team is not going to be judged until next month. And all of this lack of success the last 8 weeks and the hardships of the injuries, all that goes away if you win a game or two next week and or 2 weeks from now. And they're capable. And I think Tony Santander hitting that home run, anytime anything good happens, you're like, oh, this is that feeling. They're capable of doing this in game one. And I'm not going to, over the next 10 days, I'm going to wear you out on that because I've just seen it so often. I can't be morose about October and September. You know what I mean? I can't think October's all for
Yeah.
naught in September, especially when most of this conversation has been good news about key personnel coming back that's going to change the team that's on the field 2 weeks from now, as opposed to what was on the team 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a huge part of it. It has to be. I mean, the fact that Jordan Westberg was playing in a professional game on Thursday afternoon, that was a good thing to see. Committed an error in the first inning, and some Orioles fans joked and say, hey, he's ready, right? I mean, that's what the Orioles do in the second half. But in all seriousness, just seeing him get those at-bats. I mean, he's going to need some at-bats this weekend, and then I assume we're going to see him, the final week of the regular season, because Norfolk's not playing anymore. So you kind of get to the point where you say, well, if he was healthy enough and the wrist or the hand feels healthy, then you bring him back and he just gets at bats against the Yankees and against Minnesota the last weekend, and you try to get him in a groove. You try to get Ramon Arias in a groove in the same way they've been trying to get so many guys in their current lineup going. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, before what happened with Dominguez in the ninth inning, I mean, Jackson Holliday was shaping up to be the hero, one of the heroes on Thursday afternoon. Had a real nice 2-run single in a despite it being the fourth inning, felt like a big spot as the Orioles went from trailing to leading 3-2. He had 2 hits the night before, so I used Evan Carter as the example of what he did for the Rangers late last year as a rookie. Nothing says Jackson Holliday can't be one of the guys that gives them a spark, right? I mean, it could be anyone. I mean, we're talking about a franchise where Rick Dempsey won the MVP the last time they won the World Series
I'm glad
41
you
years
brought
ago.
that
So
up. It's been
you
40
never,
years since I brought that up. That's pretty good. That Rick Dempsey would be the star. Who was the Rick
yeah, I
Dempsey
mean,
of
you
this
never
team?
know, right? I
James
mean, and
McCann.
and let's be clear, it doesn't have to be that guy, but it's got to be somebody. You need at least it can't just be, and we've talked about this the last few weeks. It can't just be Gunnar Henderson and Cedric Mullins, and hopefully Cedric Mullins is okay after that nasty collision on Thursday afternoon. The early indications, he stayed in the game. Sounds like he's okay, but you never
It
never
looked
quite
awful.
know. But yeah, it was such a bizarre play. I mean, again, it was one of those. The ball just the wind was just kind of odd, and it just took it to this. Mullins looked like he was going to have a bead on it, and he just kept running, and it just kept carrying. It was so high up in the air. It was one of those plays where it's like, how does no one get under this? But it just me even tracking it, just watching it from the press box. It was a really bizarre fly ball. Like like I said, the wind kind of just took it in a way that you typically don't see at Camden Yards. But again, added to what's felt like just such, I didn't call it a death spiral, but a doom spiral, right? I mean, just how the last couple of weeks have gone for them, where they've been bad and unlucky at times too. So you really hope that this is the turn. You hope that this is the spark that they need. You never really know. It's as good as the next day's starting pitcher. Corbin Burns goes in the opener. The team's magic number is down to 6. So hypothetically, that they could clinch by Sunday. They're playing the Tigers, who are that team that's trying to scrap, and they've been really good. But I want to go back to something that you just said, and Brandon Hyde even addressed this. He was asked about this on Thursday late morning before their 1 o'clock game. He was asked about the Rangers last year, and he flat out said, look, if anyone knows that a team can get hot after an unimpressive second half or a frustrating September, the Orioles know it because they were victimized by that last year. I mean, think about it. The Rangers, I think, were one game under 500 in the second half of the season. Okay, the Orioles have been a little worse than that, but not dramatic. It's very comparable in that way. The Rangers, even in late September, had taken the AL West lead. Again, they had kind of an up and down September with losing streak, winning streak, losing streak. They take the lead, and then they lose the division the final weekend of the season, which sounds as deflating as it can possibly get. And then they go down to the Trop and they sweep the Rays, and they come to Baltimore, and the Orioles are puffing out their chest as a 101 win team. And I don't mean puffing out their chest like, that I'm degrading the Orioles, just talking about it in terms of a narrative, right? I mean,
Well, I remember you
AL
saying
best
beware
team.
the Rangers. I remember there was something about the Rangers you didn't like.
Well, because they had played so well at times. I mean, and the Orioles are a great example. The Orioles, it was a long time ago, but Nestor, as you and I are talking, Friday the 20th marks exactly 3 months since you and I were sitting at Costas Inn watching the Orioles absolutely bludgeon the Yankees. Just destroyed them in the Bronx. And the Orioles at that point were 24 games over 500. They had just finished a 4-2 stretch against the Phillies and the Yankees, who had been the two best teams in baseball at that point in time. Everything about the Orioles looked like they were on their way to not just matching what they did last year, but who knows, maybe challenge the 69 or the 70 Orioles for the number of wins in a season. But we know how it's gone since then. I mean, they've been an operation 7 games under 500 since then over the last 3 months. It's been at best mediocre and at times worse, a little worse than mediocre. But all you need is a spark. All you need is to get on a roll. All you need is to get a few guys back healthy, and that's happening now for them. Doesn't mean that they're the favorite. They're far from the favorite at this point in time. I mean, a lot of those injured guys aren't coming back, right? So we understand that, but in terms of looking at this field, in terms of trying to trying to handicap who the favorite is. I mean, even the Yankees, okay, they've played better and they've taken this lead over the Orioles, and the Orioles have some work to do if they even want to make this series in the Bronx even have a chance, give themselves a chance here. I mean, they've got to do some work this weekend and hope that the Yankees scuffle in Oakland against an A's team that's actually been pretty decent in the second half. Go look at their second half record. They're slightly above 500. So it's not a complete lost cause, but this is all so fragile for anyone. I mean, Juan Soto, I was listening to the Yankees Mariners game on my way home from the ballpark on Thursday evening. Juan Soto makes a kind of a diving play down in foul ground, and then he was down for a few moments. It looked like he stayed in the game. Looks like he's okay. You're not wishing an injury on anyone, but something like that happens over the last week of the season to any of these teams. A key player gets hurt. Aaron Judge turns an ankle, or heaven forbid, Gunnar Henderson, or go through the list, Altuve or whoever you want to name for the Astros. It can change the complexion of the postseason field in the AL. So you still don't know. We can still look at this and try to say, okay, well, the Yankees they have the best record. The Astros have the best pedigree out of all these teams in the AL field. The Orioles have struggled mightily in the second half of the season, but they showed what they're capable of doing in the first half of the season, and they're capable of swinging the bats at a much higher level than they have for the last 6 weeks, especially. Who knows? I like to think I know a little bit about baseball, Nestor. I don't know.
You don't know that much.
I don't. Right. I don't. I mean, it'd be boring if I knew that much, right? I mean, Buck Showalter used to always say, if we knew what was going to happen, no one would watch the games, right? I mean, there's still that unknown. So if you ask me, do I think they're going to make a deep October run at this point in time? Probably not, based on what we've seen. And a lot of it having to do with the injuries. And do they have enough pitching depth? Do they have enough in the bullpen? I have my doubts about that. It doesn't mean it can't happen, though. And certainly when you get a moment like they had on Thursday, you hope that galvanizes these guys, because as I noted, I mean, Brandon Hyde even acknowledged before Thursday's game that it's hard right now. He said that it's hard right now to be patient and to be positive when you're scuffling like this. Gunnar Henderson just a couple nights ago called it kind of weird that they haven't been able to snap out of it. Said that they've just kind of been out of sync. The pregnant pauses when you ask players in recent games how they turn this thing around, what needs to happen for them to start playing better baseball again. You can tell they're searching for the words. Not that they don't care, not that they're not putting in the work, but when you struggle, when you scuffle as long as they have, of course you're going to doubt yourself. We've been talking about these same things. If the Ravens, heaven forbid, fall to 0-3 on Sunday, we're going to be talking about some of those same storylines for them, and it's not even October yet. But at the same time, you get a big moment, you get a big win, you have your ace going on the hill the following night. You hope that one win turns into two, and then that turns into a series win at the very least against the Tigers, and then you see what happens with the Yankees out west, and then see what happens in the Bronx this week. And if you're within 3 games, you've got a shot, and so you really do have to try to compartmentalize as much as you can. I mean, I talked about this when you and I talked about the Ravens the other day, that there's no 3-win play, right? I mean, there's no 3-win play that suddenly erases the first 2 losses that the Ravens had. There's no 10-win performance that the Orioles can put out there on one night where all is forgiven and they're right back where they were back in June.
But one thing being said, this weekend with the Tigers in and a competitive team and the last home games, and then they're going to go to Yankee Stadium where they're going to get a good punch, right? I call this fall training is what I've called it. And I guess in the case of Jordan Westberg to try to get back on the field and Grayson Rodriguez to try to get back up to 40 pitches or whatever they think that they could get out of him. Or maybe in your case too, maybe it's 18 pitches and just trying to use him for an inning or two. But where would you trust him if you haven't seen it? But all of this ramp up is good fall training for them and better than the preseason games were for the Ravens. Real tests, real big leaguers, a chance for Westberg and, Urias, some of these guys to maybe shake off some ring rust and play a little bit. But I'm not beholden to the outcomes. And I said that earlier in the week. I'm much more beholden to health and crisper baseball. And that's just across the board. And I guess that means not running into each other in the 9th inning, creating an error that probably should have been 2 runs and put them behind. And getting hurt. There's the freakish things that can happen. Let's not have those happen. The Soto thing in New York, let's not have that happen here again. Let's get ready to play a playoff game in 2 weeks. That's how I feel. Let's get ready to play a playoff game. I would almost feel like when Joe Flacco came up to me out at the Harriman house and said, "You're not going to Cincinnati this week, Rick, because I'm not playing week 17. It's not going to be a real game. These games are real, but I'm not as married to the outcome as I am to no errors. How's my pitching looking? They lose 3-2 games every night for the next week. I can live with that. I really can.
I would say yes. I do want to see some of these guys start swinging the bats better, though. It doesn't mean you got to score 9 runs, but I mean, Adley Rutschman had a really nice at bat with his RBI double on Thursday afternoon. Was down 0-2, worked a 3-2 count. That looked a little more like Adley Rutschman. I want to see that. I've said it over and over. I've talked about this for weeks. You need your stars to be stars, right? I mean, Corbin Burns, the last time out, we'll see how he looks this weekend. The last time out, that looked like elite Corbin Burns. That looked like Milwaukee Brewers Corbin Burns, striking people out and missing bats and looking like a bona fide ace. Not to say that he hasn't been really good for August aside, but he hasn't necessarily looked like that elite Cy Young Award winner from 3 years ago. If you get elite Cy Young Award caliber Corbin Burns for the next 3.5, 4 weeks, we might be talking about the Orioles in the ALCS at the very least.
Well,
right?
You're talking about
so
5 starts, right? 5, 6 starts where he can be really good.
Right. So, but I'm just talking about anyone who's been scuffling, anyone that you count on. Right. I mean, Adley Rutschman. I mean, I mentioned Jackson Holliday. Not that they're counting on Jackson Holliday, but they need some more guys to be swinging the bat other than Gunnar Henderson and Cedric Mullins and Anthony Santander, the way he hit the home run on Thursday, even though Santander overall hasn't necessarily swung the bat at his best in recent weeks. But, can you see some individual performances like that? Obviously, they need to take care of sewing up the wild card spot. You want to, at the very least, hold on to this top wild card spot. This best of three is such a tricky proposition for anyone, let alone you don't want to be going on the road to do it. So, at least have home field advantage there. See what happens in the Bronx. Again, if you're within 3 games, you've got a shot. I'm not saying that going to the Bronx and being in a position where you need to sweep the Yankees is a high probability outcome, but give yourself a chance. And then, you see what happens. And even at the division, which the division statistically is absolutely a long shot at this point, but with their win on Thursday, I think Fangraphs had them at like 99.4. Baseball Reference had them at 99.5. I think ESPN had them at 99.6. I mean,
well, it goes up a whole lot if you win a game or two
playoffs
more,
now
right?
is
Just
not,
win a game or two.
Yeah, I'm right. Right, exactly. Yeah, you can't, if you lose out, then yeah, you're at the mercy of looking at the scoreboard. Sure, of course, but
what makes these Tigers games
that's
more
why
important,
Thursday's
right?
win was so good.
I mean, Tigers
It
are
allowed them to exhale.
one of the teams chasing, right?
Sure. I mean, they're playing really good baseball. They're playing really good baseball. We saw this firsthand. I mean, the fortunate thing for the Orioles, they missed Tarek Skubal again. He pitched on Wednesday, so he won't be pitching in this series. But we saw this. I mean, with the Tigers, whether they were using an opener or whatever. I mean, they've got arms that certainly showed they're capable of shutting down this Orioles lineup. Although, the skeptic would say, the cynic would say, well, everyone shut down this Orioles lineup this month, and they wouldn't be wrong when they said that. So I'm in agreement with you. I don't need to see the Orioles go 8-1 over these last 9 games. I don't even need to see them win every single series over these last 3, but show some signs, show some positives here, getting guys back healthy. Westberg looking like the guy that was an all-star. That would be huge by next weekend if he, has a couple doubles and a home run. I mean, that would be great to see. It'd be great to see Adley Rutschman swing the bat better over this final week of the season. It'd be great to see Jackson Holliday turn these 2 games into maybe a stretch like he had in early August where, he won the Orioles some games at that point in time. It doesn't mean, he's really scuffled, but he's a talented kid. I mean, you don't become the top prospect in baseball by accident. Clearly, there are people that have seen this from him and seen it at a high level. So you go through the list. To your point, hope everyone stays healthy. I mean, again, one of the more understated developments from Thursday was seeing Yennier Cano look right. I mean, he threw the ball well. Philo wasn't down. Again, you hope he feels good the next day, the day after that, because he's huge for their bullpen, right? I mean, Dominguez is the closer, we think, and has been, and until Thursday had been quite good in that role. But I've said it, you need 4 or 5 guys in the bullpen that can do real work for you in October. And, Dominguez, Cano, Jacob Webb's back, Cionel Perez. I mean, Gregory Soto, big double play ball that he got on Thursday. Maybe that's the start of him helping you out a little bit more than he has. I mean, these are a lot of ifs and buts. I understand that.
Well, that was
right?
something for the playoffs,
I'm not necessarily talking about all these.
You come out in a tight game, Sir Anthony can't get it done, and he's going to Soto, and we're like, okay, and they win the game.
I mean, even if they make a deep October run, something like that's going to happen. I mean, some pitcher will get in a jam, and you're going to have to go to someone that you don't feel great about going to, and then they have to do the job. I mean, that's how this works. Even, the Rangers last year, and that's why, people talk so much about the Orioles and relying on the home runs so much. And look, I get it. They haven't slugged nearly as well in the second half of the season. I understand all that, but go look at the Rangers. Yeah, they had Jordan Montgomery, and yeah, they had Eovaldi and their bullpen, which was not all that highly regarded, kind of did a heck of a job for them and probably pitched a little bit above their heads in October. And they got a bunch of home runs. I mean, it's not that complicated what needs to happen for the Orioles to make a run. Doesn't mean it's easy. Doesn't mean it's likely to happen, but the path is, it's still the same game at the end of the day. And that's where, again, you hope the Santander home run just reminds these guys that, hey, it's all still sitting right there for you. And, whether they're going to finish with 90 wins or 89 wins or 91 wins, I mean, to your point, who cares about that element of it? As long as you're in, it's go time. Get these guys back healthy that are coming back, and try to put together some good performances, some good at bats, some good pitching, keep everyone healthy. If you get to a point where you have nothing to play for the last game or two next weekend in Minnesota, then rest a couple guys. You do that. And then, hey, it's play ball early next week or early the following week. And like I said, their calendar currently sets up for Eflin game 1, Burns game 2, if they are indeed pitching in the wild card series, which, barring an amazing run here over the last week, it's what it's going to be. So it sets up there, and there you go. Your top 2 starters in the first 2 games of a best of 3. It can't get better than that, because Kyle Bradish isn't walking through that door. Grayson Rodriguez isn't ready to start a game 1 or a game 2 at this point in time. John Means isn't walking through that door. So Felix Bautista's not coming out of the bullpen in the 9th inning. So
and Palmer can't get anybody out
at this point.
I know this. So
right, exactly. So Mike Messina, right? I mean, so you go with what you have and you roll the dice, and finally the Orioles got something good to happen for them on Thursday. And again, is it just a temporary respite from this doom spiral that it feels like they've been on, or will it truly represent a spark for them to perhaps make some noise in October? We'll find out very quickly, because the Tigers are coming to town with plenty to play for, and they've been playing really good baseball. So this will be, to your point, whether you're September training, October training, however you want to call it, these last couple series will certainly be a nice tune-up, and if you want to call it a litmus test for where the Orioles are, well, so be it. The Orioles haven't played well even against mediocre teams, so maybe they'll elevate their play a little bit facing some tougher competition. Who knows?
You think Gunnar Henderson will ever go 6 for 6 with 10 RBIs and 3 home runs in a game?
Oh my goodness. I'm glad you at least brought that up. That I've talked so fondly of Shohei Ohtani the last few years now. I mean, it's remarkable what he's doing. And I mean, the fact that he hasn't even been able to pitch this year because of elbow surgery, and then suddenly he invents something new, some new amazing accomplishment for someone to go 50-50. I mean, I remember Jose Canseco going 40-40, when I was a kid, and how big of a deal that is. And this guy, 50-50, and oh yeah, he's an ace on the hill when he's healthy. I mean, it truly is remarkable. And I hope baseball fans, young or old, those who are just new to the game, or those who are cranky and don't like WAR and OPS and weighted runs created and analytics and the pitch timer and all the all the old school fans, things that they might complain about, appreciate what you're seeing from this guy, because this is so incredible. And as a baseball fan, there are plenty of greats. We talked about this not long ago with the passing of Willie Mays, and I told you the reverence I have for him as someone who wasn't born for another decade after he played his final games in the major leagues. But Shohei Ohtani, I mean, Babe Ruth is this mythical, one of the greatest players of all time. I'm not saying he isn't, but also as a folk hero, right? He's this mythical creation, the called shot and a two-way player. Ruth, as a two-way player, that was a very fleeting thing. He did it for a couple years and wasn't really truly a two-way player, meaning like did both full time. Ohtani's done that for a couple seasons when he's been healthy, and now the power's gone up, stolen bases have gone up, and I mean, I think what's fascinating is the Dodgers pitching situation, Nestor. Is there a pathway for Shohei Ohtani to throw a couple innings from the mound before it's all said and done in October? I mean, I am not going to cap anything that guy can do. I'm not going to say that he can't do anything because he is just absolutely remarkable. And again, as someone who loves baseball, loves the history of baseball, I feel pretty privileged, pretty fortunate to simply get to say that I've been able to watch Shohei Ohtani play. I've seen him play in person. I've seen him pitch. I've seen him hit a home run in right center field at Camden Yards that few people reach that kind of territory there. So I mean, what he did on Thursday to join the 50-50 club, and then what? I guess it's the 51-51 club now, and he still has a little over a week to go. I mean, guy's unbelievable, and really, really fun to watch. And like I said, baseball fans, young and old, appreciate what you're seeing because we use the term generational talent very loosely across sports. I think it's probably something we overuse, but if it doesn't apply to Shohei Ohtani, then it doesn't apply to anyone because you might very well be looking at, I don't even want to say might. If we're talking just in terms of true, pure talent, what he is doing, how can you argue against him being the most talented player in the history of the game? Doesn't mean the best, longevity and all those things. I mean, I'm not saying he's the greatest of all time, but in terms of talent, what he is doing, it's absolutely extraordinary.
It's freakish. I don't know what else to say. And maybe we'll get the Dodgers next month in the World Series when we get there. Luke Jones will be monitoring all things Orioles. We'll be watching the Ravens in Dallas this weekend. We'll be back after it, during the games, after the games, early in the morning. Follow us out on social media. We've been doing a Maryland Crab Cake Tour presented by the Maryland Lottery. I'll have the Ravens scratch-offs beginning today. And moving forward. So don't forget, the 27th, we're at Costas. On the 11th, we're going to be at Pizza John's. You'll hear all about that. My oyster tour has taken on new dimensions. I went out and had another oyster shooter in Columbia the other night on the way to D.C. All of it brought to you by our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions, 1-800-CLEAN-WATER. If you have well water, if you need a plumber, if you have water issues, you need Liberty Pure Solutions. They do great work. They've done great work by me. I am Nestor. He's Luke. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. Yankees are up next for the Orioles, and the Bills are up next for the Ravens. It's going to be a long weekend around here for sports. Stay with us.